We are in an AI world and things are moving so quickly, it can be really hard to keep up. As professional communicators and change managers, we are in the thick of it, whether it's exploring the tools ourselves or helping others to adapt and change. But are we really using AI to its full potential? What else could we be doing? And what could the future hold for our professions in this AI era? It's because of those questions that for today's episode, I interviewed the one and only Bosco Anthony. Bosco is a transformational digital strategist, international TEDx speaker, disruptive storyteller, and marketing futurist with extensive experience in corporate leadership and communications. As the CEO and managing partner of multiple global agencies and consultancies, including GRG, Access China, Boss & Co., and Fensum Advisory, he brings a dynamic mix of expertise in technology adoption, public relations, communications, marketing, and advertising. With a remarkable ability to inspire, Bosco equips audiences with the insights and strategies needed to thrive in an evolving marketplace. He assists his clients in navigating critical thinking from what is to what if to embrace the superhuman era. In this conversation, Bosco shares some of what he and his team are working on at the forefront of AI in marketing, PR, and comms, what's worrying him, and what excites him about AI. Honestly, Bosco and I could have nerded out about this stuff for hours, and I could have gone down so many rabbit holes, but luckily for you, dear listener, I did not. But you will still find this episode packed with gold nuggets. So without further ado, here's Bosco. Welcome to Less Chat and More Matter.
Thanks for having me, Mel.
It is a pleasure to finally have you on the show. We've known each other a little while, but for the people who are listening who may not know who you are, tell us a bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? How do you come to develop your expertise in that space?
Fair enough. I am Bosco Anthony. I am a CEO of a progressive performance media agency called GRJ. I also have a few other agencies as well. I'm a marketer by trade, a storyteller by instinct, and a futurist by curiosity.
Oh, I like that. Very good. And when you say you've got a few other agencies, you've worked around the world, haven't you? Tell us a bit about that.
So I've been fortunate enough I'm an immigrant as well, but I was born in Tanzania, moved to Vancouver in 2002, spent about 18 years there, had an agency and then exited out and moved here around 2020, I want to say 2019. And this was just before the apocalypse, and then decided to call Australia home. And so I started off my consultancy again here. I'm consulting a few different groups, the PR and communication firm. I have my own supply chain. We have an agency in China as well now that we set up shop in, and then we have the performance media agency and a few other businesses as well. So I don't sleep much, but I do rely on robots every day.
Well, let's get into that because that's why I wanted to talk to you today. When we think about AI, right now, most people are probably thinking about tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini. What role do you see those tools in particular playing in our lives as professional communicators or change managers?
Yeah, so I think the tools are designed for us they're utility tools, so they're designed for human dependency as well. But the challenge is that we have to do more than how we're currently feeding it. So when we think about prompt engineering, there's a difference between regular prompt engineering and sophisticated prompt engineering. And it's how you communicate. So believe it or not, you actually need to be a strong communicator when you're dealing with these tools, because the input you give is the output you get. So if your input is lazy, then the output won't be actually the response you're looking for. So now more than ever, we actually have to be really strong communicators with these tools as well. Now, these tools are utility tools, but the world has seen so much more in the last few years. We're seeing progression in agentic AI. We're seeing progression in workflows. In the creative industry specifically, we've started to see enhancements now as well. Allianz was the first company that just produced a commercial completely made by AI, and it's now in TV. The commercials online, everyone can see it. And the creative industry is taking a massive beating, not because we're seeing people get replaced. Yes, Facebook, Meta laid off 8,000 people, Amazon, and all these big companies have started to lay people off. But it's because those skills have started to become irrelevant, or they're starting to get completely enhanced. So, there's a place for the human workforce. There's either going to be a shift to humans in the loop where we have to start to monitor and be quality control, or we need to start to enhance and check the work of the robots, which we're already seeing right now. But more importantly, these tools are base layer tools for utility. The next step now is the integration of how does it work with the rest of our business life or our life in general. And I think we're not really ready for that. I think the workforces right now are still stuck in that, should AI be used? I always laugh when people say, yes, we use AI. And then when you start to dig a little deeper, Copilot is mentioned as the tool that they use. And Copilot is just a safe software that comes with an MS Office package. But really, if that's your version of AI, there's still so much out there. And we're going to see, progression in ethics. We're going to see progression in how we look at things. We're going to see production and quality control. It's being infused in every part of our life, and I think uh, the scary part is we're not ready for it.
Mhm. Actually, I want to go back to something you mentioned just before. So, for people who may not be aware because they think AI is Copilot, what's the difference between a tool like AI and what is agentic AI?
Right, great question. So, and this might freak you out as well, but in the last few years, TRG has been exploring agentic AI, and that is the sophistication of agent robots in the utility of workflow. And I'll give you a specific great example. So, GRG specializes in marketing for international leads to universities and education institutions. You generate for some of these universities, 40 to 50,000 leads. Some of these leads come in outside of Australian time zones. Now, back in the day, the student might wait, or they'll try again, or they'll try to reach out 2, 3, 4 days. That has changed. Students are now shopping around. They want accessibility right away. They want to speak to someone. What do you do as a business owner if you don't have that capability of working outside of time zones? So in this particular case, we were like, we're not trying to replace humans. We're going to create robotic agents that work inbound lines post Australian time zones. So these robots come to life after hours. They work through the morning. They're there to train the robots the robots are trained to read scripts, but more importantly, they're there to either do human triaging or human scheduling or human support. So they're there to book and take appointments, take consultations. They're there to answer basic questions. We've already started to see that in the travel phone lines. Companies like bookings.com give consumers a choice. You can wait for an hour to speak to a human, or you can speak to a robot within 30 seconds. We've already started to see it in the banking side of things. And so, people were like, oh, well, does this work? And is it actually strong enough? Well, I can tell you right now, in the last 2 years, we have seen progression of the robotic voices. 6 months ago, we were basically starting to play with robotics. Now we're starting to do accents. I just heard a robot that sounds like me. So it's basically using my voice. We're at GRG right now. We are trialing human voices on actual robots that sound exactly like myself or someone else. So we can do voice mirroring now as well. So it's come a long way. It can do languages, it can do linguistics, it can do translations, it can do transcripts, monitoring, quality control. So when a human comes back the next day, there's meeting schedule. We also have, don't talk specialists that use robots for receptionist work. And it's funny because a lot of people book their appointments after Australian working hours. So I have clients today that went, you'll be surprised how many people pick up the phone and speak to our robots at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. at night. Right. So AI is not coming for your jobs. AI is coming for the inefficiencies and the excuses, right? AI doesn't care what time you work or you don't work. It's there to basically orchestrate itself when you need it the most. So if Australians don't want to work past 5 p.m., that's the perfect time to integrate AI.
Mm. And it's interesting you say that, and you mentioned just before about the ethics around this continuing to grow. Like we've seen a lot of deep fakes in the political arena, particularly. TikTok is rife with them. And as you're talking about, this ability to mimic voices and those sorts of things is coming along. How do you guys at GRG sort of balance that, going with the efficiencies, but making sure there's still an ethical transparency around what's happening?
Yeah, look, it's the technology for cloning and deepfakes is there. Unfortunately, it's become a utility. There's tools for it. There's also tools to watermark it and tag it so you know what's real and what's not real. So there's tools that exist that tells you what's different from each other. But as a company, we're not using it for a political agenda. We're not there to use it for, a religious or propaganda side of things. We're working with businesses. So one of the quickest businesses to adapt to the Agentic AI in Australia is tradies. So tradies, as we all know, if you've tried to get your air condition fixed or try to get something in your house fixed, it's so hard to get labor sometimes because try getting a trainee to come fix your air condition in the summertime. It just doesn't work because they're booked out. So that's an industry that they're so focused on being on the ground and doing their crafts that they're not necessarily there to pick up phone calls. So we brought this technology to industries that needed it the most. International students are wanting information centers. We just don't have enough humans. We found through our intelligence and data that an international lead was coming in at 2 a.m. Australia time or 12 p.m. Like we were doing data sets by the hour, and the majority of international leads come outside of Australian time zones. So, there's a lot of universities and institutions that have archaic systems that don't speak to each other. They go through 30 layers of tech stacks, 7 stages of enrollment. And so the reason why I'm generating 50,000 leads is because we have an 85% lead drop off. So, we as a company, we became really intelligent, and we're not just a full service marketing agency. We're not just a communication agency. We are transforming our business and transforming our clients' business as a result of this as well. And some of these things I show on stage, you and I happen to be affiliated with Fusion Conference, and one of the things I'm going to be showing is a lot of how we actually communicate. There's a lot of people that say that they use AI. We're actually going to show case studies and examples, and I'm going to show the evolution of human voice through robotics, which is an interesting thing when you start to hear where the robots were and where they are today, right? So it's evolving very quickly, and there are guide rails and there are ways to sort of safeguard situations. But I think to go back to your question, businesses and humans have to make the right choices. And there's going to be a lot of forks along the road where we have to make the right choices, and that looks at all the different scenarios. It looks at the preservation of the human workforce. It looks at peace. It looks at, okay, if you are displacing 8,000 people or 20,000 people or entire sector or entire country, how are we going to look after those people, or how are we going to preserve them? And that's the conversation that we need to be having more of, because those are the questions that are currently just fading away. We're talking about the advancement of an evolved species and the superhuman era and the technology, but what about the people who are left behind?
Mhm. And that's a real concern for a lot of people. And, definitely in the comms profession, I'm sure you've heard it, there are a lot of people out there who are worried that AI is going to replace them. One of the things you said before was, not coming for the jobs, but coming for the inefficiencies. If we think about, the day-to-day of a comms person, whether it's in a project team, it's in a corporate affairs team, in a corporate, whatever that looks like, what do you think are some of the things they should be pivoting on to make sure their value is still recognized and not being replaced with an AI tool?
Yeah. So I think the first place is understanding the acceptance of where you are. If you are asking, should I be using these tools? Should they exist? It's a little too late because, I think, Mel, you've seen me speak now for a few years, and I've been showing, audiences the advancement of technology. And people thought I was a crazy person 2 years ago, and I was showing them different things. And people are like, oh, we're still going to need humans and everything else. Yes, humans are still going to be in the loop. The ones you have to be worried about are the ones who are understanding it and learning how to orchestrate AI. So the key part here as communicators is we have to learn how to orchestrate it. We have to learn what a human in the loop is, and we have to learn when to apply it, when to use it, when to step away from it, when to monitor it, when to leverage it. Um, AI was machine learning in the 60s. It's embedded in our lives. Someone who goes, "Oh, I don't use AI." Well, if you're watching Netflix, technically you are using it. If you're on a playlist, you are using it. It's in our lives, right? So as communicators, I think understanding sophisticated prompt engineering, understand the layer between the product of AI versus what you put out there. These are all common practices, but let's use the field of communication today. Um, PR companies now have the option in some parts of the world to automate AI to send outreach to journalists, and it's called permission-based outreach, where journalists can get text, agentic AI, emails, and they have the choice of what story they want to pursue. AI has the ability to take a update, and I'll use your LinkedIn post, beware of the snake, and AI can literally turn that into different signs, signals. It can be used with the disability side of things as well. At the moment, GRG is exploring agentic AI for voice recognition for people who are deaf in the accessibility space.
Love
So
it.
there's so much we can use with AI and leverage it. The thing is, we have to eliminate fear and we have to accept, okay, this is where we are. This is the era. And the question, the question that everyone should ask ourselves is, what could we do with AI if we knew we couldn't fail? And that's a hard question because that's a question we could ask ourselves in life. What could we do every day if we couldn't fail, right? Like Mel, if I said to you today, what would you do as a person today if you couldn't fail? What would be the first answer that comes to mind?
I'd fly a plane.
Okay. That changes your trajectory completely from what you're doing in communication, right? But my point is that that's the scenario here that we need to do. So rather than going, "Oh, AI is here to take our jobs," AI is, yes, there's fears and there's legitimate fears and things are going on in that space. But imagine if communicators came together and said, "We have a problem. Let's put our heads together and fix this." We're already seeing that. Like a reporter gets pitched 4 to 500 times a day on different media angles. Imagine if a reporter had a way to select the best stories leveraging AI. And imagine if we had to become stronger communicators using AI to get that story out to the reporter. You know what I mean? That's just one example of communication. But I'm sure if we changed the question and you looked at everything we do today with AI and communication, and we said to ourselves, how could we use AI to fix things? We're now moving from prompt engineering to AI orchestration. And that's the next layer because AI has done studying with patterns. It's now moving to human behavior and it's starting to study human behavior. And that requires us to start feeding it even more outputs, inputs as well to get better outputs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that too, because I've just done a little bit of research around comfort levels on AI, what people are comfortable using it for, what they're not. Predominantly communications type of use cases. But what comes to mind with me with those results is we don't know what we don't know. So until you've tried AI for some of these things, how do you know if it's good or bad or indifferent?
Yeah.
And we've been like that in many places before, right? Before the advent of social media, before the internet, all of these things have come and gone. We've gotten used to them. They've become part of our daily lives and we've moved on. So for me, it's one of those things where we need to experiment. We need to be actively trying things and just seeing what sticks and what doesn't.
100%. And what might not stick today will change tomorrow. So back in the day, I tried playing with my facial recognition and tried to do things with ChatGPT, and it made me look like an alien. And I was like, that's not me. And then it upgraded its cards and it upgraded its memory and it's upgraded its GPTs. And all of a sudden now I can't tell the difference between my face and one that has a cyborg next to my face combined together, right? So it's come a long way. And so yes, AI will stumble. There are moments where it hallucinates, or there are moments where I actually break the system and it says, "I'm sorry, I cannot do this task that you've asked me to because I just don't have enough resources." And that's great because now I know where I'm pushing it to the limit, and now I know how to work around it. So I've been working with an AI recently. I used a GPT Pro plan. I put in 10,000 words, and it said it could only do up to 3,000 words before it starts to break and fall apart. So it said so I said, how would you fix this? And it said, well, I can give you your response back in three parts as opposed to one part. And that was how we worked around it. So that's the layer of where we need to go moving forward, is that experimentation, because at the end of the day, every major technological shift has rewarded the people who are curious.
Mhm. Totally agree. And just on that too, so we've talked about, large language models. That's what a lot of us are using. And I think a lot more people are comfortable with using those. Again, my research shows actually the boomer age group is very comfortable with using those sorts of technologies. But as communicators or change people, what are some of the other tools do you think we should be looking at?
Look, I mean, if you start to get to agentic status, you're starting to use it, you're moving into orchestration, but there's tools for every facet. There's tools for data analysis, there's tools for coding. Claude has just upgraded a lot of its Claude coding tools. I've been working on legal documents within Claude, and pound for pound, just it is scary what Claude can do. You and I both have our own businesses. I've been using it for accounting. Scary what it can do into zero. So they're all sort of, I'm still really heavily focused on the large language models, but I'm now starting to integrate it with my business utilities. So Claude and Zero work really well together. Claude, from a legal perspective, some of the agreements and drafts are really strong. My business partner, who runs a communication agency, he works in the mining sector. He's constantly sending me these NDA agreements and other types of agreements, and we're picking it apart because AI can pick things up so much quicker, and we'll compare what a lawyer has given us versus what AI has given us, and it's just scary, the contrast of relations. So I think as people, I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is it's not necessarily what layer that you're using it, but how are you orchestrating and integrating it into the other facets of your life or business? And we're seeing great returns. I think, when I say bookkeepers and people should be worried, it's not that they should be worried about losing their jobs. They should be worried about involving their skill sets, because some of the base skill sets are going to start to get replaced, and we're seeing it throughout everything. Now, having said that, I've also found errors, and that's where humans in the loop and quality control will come into a big play. Great example, just 2 weeks ago, I needed to polish something. I needed to be 300 words for an award nomination. And it kept saying, yeah, I've given you something that's under 300 words. But when you actually put it into Word, it was 305 words. And we were like, this is an error. And it's done it so it kept making the same error over and over again. So there are ways to trip AI. And so I think what I've learned is to understand the flaws, work around it, but also create guide rails to fix those solutions as well. So that's the next era of where we're moving into, is even sophisticating how we use AI.
Two questions for you. One is, what excites you about AI at the moment, and what's worrying you?
Well, that's a loaded question because of the look that it's me and
What's the biggest thing that's exciting you then? What's the main?
yeah, yeah. Look, I think as a futurist and as a storyteller, I'm really excited because we are seeing every single day validation of our work leveraging AI. So we came up with the world's first tool where we can see what creative elements should go into a digital ad. So we could walk into a pitch, we could do digital advertising and actually tell the consumer what are some of the creative elements that are working without stifling originality or creativity. Once we know what the guide rails are, we can actually enhance the capabilities of what to put in an ad. So this was a few years ago. We brought it to market. In Australia, 60% of the Australian universities use that technology. We've rebranded, call it Atlas Ad Intelligence. And that technology has probably been the most rewarding and the thing that really excites me, because we discovered new platforms, we discovered cultural nuances, we discovered behavioral insights. today that technology is across 17 different verticals, but we just finished some amazing campaigns. We had one of our biggest campaigns with Study Melbourne, 3 years in, 2.4 billion impressions, 400,000 call to actions on their website. It was their biggest performance in campaign history. And consistently, with TikTok videos, with TikTok promotions, with videos, YouTube, we're constantly seeing other clients seeing, exceeding benchmarks. We even had platforms in China recognize our ad campaigns as being the industry benchmark for the sector. So for me, having those visual cues to say, hey, we're an organization that isn't fearful of AI and we're actually putting our best foot forward to empower our clients, that's rewarding. What keeps me up at night is the reluctance and the fear. And sure, some of the fear is valid, but technology rarely destroys careers overnight. It's usually stagnation that does, right? If you think about the keyboard error and the typewriter, it's the same error as that time when we were replacing the keyboards. It's the same error as when we moved from DVDs to streaming. It's that same era as we moved from the VHS tapes to the DVD player. Like there's a point in time right now where humans are evolving, and I am just worried about the conversations around what happens to the human race. Yeah. Side of it. I've learned very quickly that I needed to adapt to survive. And I know that there's a lot of people that aren't adapting, and there are others that need that skill set, which has created, work for myself and my companies and people like yourself and I. But there's a bigger conversation around, what choices are we making for the human race that still keep me up at night.
That's a big existential question. So I think on that note, we have covered a lot of ground. There's one more question. If there were 3 things you think we should be exploring right now, what are they?
Ooh, all right. So the first one would be simple. I think AI literacy is something that everyone should have. And I think you having communicators like yourself or myself, practitioners like us to come into workforces and help workforces understand it, demystify it, simplify it, create guide rails is really important. One thing every company needs to have right now is an innovation month once a month or once every few weeks, and invite guest speakers to come in and train them. That's something I highly recommend. I've got clients, a great client recently that brings me in. I think I've done 2 for their innovation workshops. Is FKG. They're a family-based business out of Toowoomba. They've had guest speakers come in. I've come in myself and done some stuff, and I've had other speakers come in to do stuff for them as well. But that's a progressive company that understands things are changing, that understands that the world is changing, and they want to prepare their people. I can't tell you how many other companies out there wanting to transform their workplace. So having an innovation month to create AI literacy, but not just AI literacy, just technology changes and advancements in general is great. You learn so many different things. But even for me, working with people, I get to learn new tools. I have a team. I have a gentleman by the name of Atur that discovered Manus, and Manus is a tool that allows you to enhance your PowerPoint presentations and for anyone who works in agency land, we're constantly driven by deadlines. Manus is our key to answering those deadlines as well. So yeah, which is really cool. The next thing is sophisticated prompt engineering, which means that you need communication skills to learn how to communicate with an LLM and give it a proper brief. So not just basic human lazy inputs, but really understanding prompt stacking, prompt comparisons, parallel prompts. So taking one prompt from one stack and moving into another stack and comparing the two, learning about humans, quality control, all of those things around sophisticated prompt engineering is going to be really important to get a stronger AI output. And then for me, that human skill set is right now probably at its premium. So things like empathy, judgment, trust, monitoring, quality control. These are some of the biggest premium skills we're going to need, because not only do people struggle with soft skills, but more importantly, these are the skills that are going to allow us to experiment daily, learn publicly, stay relentlessly human while we are understanding and monitoring the output. So I'm not here to say, hey, your job is completely going to replace. I think your job is going to be completely changed and evolved. And as communicators, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that silence has taught me more about communication than speaking ever did. So actually analyzing the outputs and actually using your brain to understand what's right and what's incorrect, those are some crucial skill sets in the future.
Perfect. Well, on that note, we have 3 questions we ask every guest on the podcast. Are you ready for those?
Yeah, keep me.
All right. First one. What is an unexpected or left of field way you learned a valuable lesson about communication?
Yeah. So look, for me, it would probably be about saying less than more. And some of the best communicators have always focused on the context and the clarity. So it was a very unexpected lesson for me because when I worked with my mentor, I had all this information, and his message to me was, how do you say it in a very short contextual way to create clarity? So it was not something I was expecting going into my career, but I've always used that lesson when it comes to advertising and storytelling, is how can you create impact with very little words?
Love it. What is a book or podcast you love and would recommend to our listeners?
Well, I've been following your podcast, so I will give your podcast a shameless plug. But yeah, book wise, I read a lot. I read about 6 books at the same time. I have a couple of guilty pleasures, like for the airport. I am reading the Dan Brown book right now, the Secret of Secrets. Which, look, it's it's a trashy book, but that's my guilty pleasure. When you're stuck on a plane for a while, it's a good story. But at the moment, I am reading The Psychology of Money, which is a great book, not only about finance, but about human behavior. And The Almanac of Naval Rafikant, which is a masterclass in leverage, judgment, and long-term thinking. So there's a couple of books that I am reading as well. But yes, I wouldn't say I have one favorite one. I tend my favorite book is the next one.
Love it. And final question. If you could wave your magic wand and change one thing about communication in the workplace, what would it be?
Yeah, look, I don't think we have a communication problem. We have a prioritization problem. And I think that's the reality of it is humans don't need more updates. They need more certainty. But I think also, I think we need to, it's interesting because I can tell a level of a fear based on the type of questions I get when I'm on stage. And a lot of those questions are in ethics and this and that. And I go, listen, it's here. We need to embrace it. We need to just embrace the fear and move on with it. So for me, if I could wave my magic wand, I would try to inspire people to start acting out of love as opposed to fear. And I would probably get people to ask the different sets of questions, which is, what would we do differently if we knew we couldn't fail?
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Bosco. If people wanted to find out more about you and the work that you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
Look, I'm on all the socials, as they say, under Bosco Anthony. You can pretty much reach me out there, but I also have an email called boscoanthony.com. You can reach us at TRG if you want to talk about the agentic robots as well. So there's different brands. If you just Google my name, there's different ways to find me. And actually, I think I can also be found now on the GPTs because they've now started to scan a lot of my press releases and content sources there. But yeah, thanks for having me, Mel, and always a pleasure to nerd out with you on your podcast.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And we'll see you at the IBC Fusion Conference in Brisbane. So if people are around Australia, want to come and see Bosco in the flesh and see all the exciting things he mentioned earlier around how the AI tools have evolved, come along in October. We'll see you there.
Look forward to it.
Thank you so much.